I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next fight anymore. I wasn't bracing for a door to slam or a sigh to signal some new resentment. The air in the house felt breathable again. And yet, I missed her. I missed the chaos of her presence. The way she'd come down the stairs in the morning half awake, hair a mess, mumbling about coffee like a zombie. I missed Ryan's awkward small talk. Even his mismatched socks left on the floor felt oddly nostalgic. But I didn't regret asking them to leave. It was necessary. Because for the first time in years, Sophie and I were beginning to speak like two adults. Not parent and child. Not landlord and tenant. But human beings, both a little bruised, both a little stubborn, both learning how to love each other better. She texted me on Sunday afternoon. Can I stop by and pick up my charger? Left it behind. Of course. Want to stay for dinner? A pause. Then, yeah, I'd like that. She came alone. When I opened the door, there was no dramatic energy. Just her. Hair in a bun, sweatshirt too big, keys in hand. She looked tired, but softer. And when I hugged her, she didn't pull away. We ate together. Nothing fancy. Just spaghetti and garlic bread. Her favorite from when she was a kid. She talked about work, about how stressful it had been at her new office. She said Ryan was doing better too, less tense now that they were in a temporary place and figuring out their next steps. I asked how she felt about moving into their apartment next month. Her eyes lit up. I'm nervous, but it feels right. It's time. I nodded. It is. Then she looked at me. I was angry at you that night. Really angry. But deep down, I think I knew. You weren't wrong. I looked at her, surprised. She continued. I was frustrated with everything. You were just the easiest target. You've always been strong, Mom. I think I leaned on that too hard. I let you, I admitted. Because I thought that's what a good mother does. Keeps holding on no matter how tired she gets. She smiled. Maybe a good mother also knows when to let go. That hit me hard. Because for the first time, it didn't feel like I had lost her. It felt like I had given her room to grow. We cleared the table together after dinner, like we used to. She washed, I dried. Just as she was about to leave, she paused in the doorway. Thank you for not slamming the door behind me, she said. I smiled. I left it unlocked for a reason. The next few weeks passed in this strange, peaceful rhythm. Sophie and I weren't speaking every day, but when we did, it felt intentional, kind, real. Like both of us had put our weapons down and finally learned how to talk without drawing blood. Still, it wasn't perfect. Some days I found myself thinking, maybe I overreacted. Maybe I should have just walked away that night instead of kicking them out. Other days, I'd remember her tone, sharp, dismissive, and I'd feel the old frustration rise in my chest again. Healing doesn't follow a straight line. It twists, bends, backtracks. I think we both knew that now. One afternoon, she invited me to see the new apartment. It was small, a one-bedroom walk-up with squeaky floors and a kitchen that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the early 2000s. But it was theirs. And she beamed like she just bought a mansion. This is where the couch will go, she said, spinning around the tiny living room. And we're putting bookshelves here. Ryan wants a plant, but I told him we kill everything green. I laughed. Sounds familiar. She looked at me, smiled. I learned it from you. We unpacked a few boxes together. She showed me some of her artwork she'd been storing in sketchbooks. It was different now, more mature, more honest. One piece in particular caught my eye, a girl sitting on a rooftop, staring at the moon, her face shaded in longing and defiance. That one's about moving on, she said softly, but also not running away. I nodded. It's beautiful. It was quiet after that, a comfortable kind of silence. Then she said something that stopped me in my tracks. I needed to be pushed, Mom. I didn't know how much until you did it. I didn't say anything right away. I just looked at her, my daughter, this grown woman with a stubborn heart and soft eyes. And I felt that ache again. The one that comes when you realize your child isn't a child anymore. I wasn't trying to push you out, I finally said. I was trying to push you forward. I just didn't know how to say it without breaking something. You did break something, she said, not unkindly. But maybe it needed to break. We hugged before I left. This time, it was longer, deeper, no tension. Just two people learning how to love each other again, with new rules, more space, and fewer assumptions. And as I walked to my car, I realized something. This was what growth looked like. Messy, uncomfortable, but absolutely necessary. When Sophie moved out for the first time, really moved out, not just stormed off to her grandparents, I wasn't sure how the house would feel. Empty? Quiet? Relieved? It felt different. Not bad. Not good. Just different. The living room was cleaner. The laundry wasn't a constant, rotating mess. The fridge stayed organized. But there was something missing, too. A hum, a heartbeat. The subtle, chaotic rhythm of someone else's life moving alongside mine. And yet, I wasn't lonely. For the first time in years, I started filling my space again. I rearranged the furniture. Finally painted the guest room that awful beige color I always hated. I started leaving the TV on for background noise while I cooked, something I'd stopped doing when Sophie complained it was distracting. I reclaimed the little corners of my life I'd forgotten I loved. One Saturday morning, I woke up early and went for a walk in the neighborhood. Just me, a travel mug of coffee, and the sunrise bleeding over the rooftops. I didn't check my phone once. Halfway through the walk, I realized I wasn't thinking about Sophie. Not in a guilty way. Not in a how is she managing way. I just let her be. Let myself be. That afternoon, she came by, this time with Ryan. They brought a potted plant as a housewarming gift. I laughed as I took it. I give it 3 weeks, I said. Sophie rolled her eyes. You have no faith in us. Not when it comes to plants. But it was nice. Casual. Normal. We sat on the patio and had lemonade. Ryan talked about a project he was working on at his job. Sophie filled me in on their upcoming IKEA trip and how they were trying to agree on a rug. I listened, not like a mother trying to fix or direct, but like someone invited to witness their lives without managing it. That was new. That was hard-earned. Eventually, Ryan excused himself to take a call, and Sophie and I were left alone again. I like it here, she said, sipping her drink. It feels safe. I'm glad, I said. Then added, even if we had to go through fire to get back to this. She nodded. Sometimes fire clears the brush. That made me smile. We watched the sky shift from pale blue to a soft rose-tinted dusk. The wind moved gently through the trees, and for a moment, everything felt still, not frozen, not tense, just still. I don't think we were meant to live together forever, Sophie said after a while. No, I agreed. Oh, we were meant to find our way back to each other. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. And just like that, I realized the shape of home had changed. It was no longer the people in the rooms or the noise in the kitchen. It was connection, love, the kind that survives the distance and the silence, the kind that returns. It was almost the end of the month when Sophie and Ryan officially moved into their new apartment. Not just half living out of boxes anymore, but really settling. Curtains on the windows, pictures on the walls, spices in the kitchen cabinet. She invited me over for dinner on a Thursday night. Her first time cooking in her own kitchen. Don't expect a 5-star meal, she warned over the phone. But I promise it's edible. I smiled at the thought. I survived your high school lasagna. I'll survive anything. When I walked into their place, I was stunned. Not because it was fancy. It wasn't. But because it felt like her. A soft throw blanket draped over the couch. Sketches pinned to the wall. A cat-shaped mug drying beside the sink. All those little touches of identity she never had space to express while living under my roof. She greeted me with a hug. No awkwardness. No tension. Just warmth. Dinner was pasta with sautéed vegetables and garlic bread. Slightly overcooked, but it didn't matter. It tasted like effort. It tasted like care. We sat at their tiny dining table with mismatched chairs and shared a bottle of wine. Ryan was more relaxed than I'd ever seen him, cracking jokes, talking about his childhood, offering me seconds. Sophie laughed more freely now. Less guarded, like she didn't have to defend herself anymore. At one point during the meal, she looked at me and said, "You know, when you told us to leave that night, I thought it was the end." I swallowed my sip of wine, meeting her eyes. And now? I think it was a beginning. I nodded, feeling the truth of that settle in my chest. We talked about boundaries, respect, growing up, and how damn hard it is to navigate family when everyone's changing all at once. We talked like equals, like two women who had lived through a storm together and made it to the other side. Eventually, I stood to leave. She walked me to the door, her hand lingering on the frame like she wasn't ready to say goodbye just yet. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Thank you for inviting me." She hesitated, then added, "I'm glad we didn't let one bad night define everything." "Me too," I said. "We're stronger than that." And we were. We had bruises, sure. We had scars from words spoken in frustration and pride, but we also had love. Real, tested love. And now, we had space, boundaries, mutual respect. Things we didn't know we needed until they were broken and rebuilt. As I walked to my car, I realized sometimes the hardest thing a parent can do is let go. Not because they stop loving, but because they love enough to want something better than dependence. They want growth. They want peace. And now, finally, we had both. A few weeks later, I stood in the kitchen making coffee when my phone buzzed with a message from Sophie. "You free today?" Thinking of stopping by. I stared at the message for a moment, a soft smile tugging at my lips. I typed back, "Of course. I'll make that lemon loaf you love." An hour later, she was at my door. No fanfare, no hesitation. Just Sophie with a bright smile, a reusable grocery bag in one hand, and a bag of oranges in the other. "For the loaf," she said, grinning. I pulled her into a hug, and this time it felt like home again, not because she was living here, but because we had finally found our way back to each other. We sat at the kitchen table, laughing over tea while the lemon loaf baked, the smell of sugar and citrus winding through the house. She told me about her latest art piece, how she and Ryan were trying to grow basil in a little window planter. "It's already dying," she admitted, and how weird it felt to suddenly be adulting in the real world. "But you know what?" she said, curling her hands around her mug. "I think I like it." I looked at her, this young woman who once threw tantrums over curfews and borrowed clothes. And I felt proud, not just of who she'd become, but of us. Of how far we'd come from that night everything cracked open. We talked for hours that afternoon. No pressure, no tiptoeing, just honesty. Eventually, she stood to leave. I walked her to the door. She looked back once before stepping outside. "I'm really glad we're okay, Mom." "Me too," I said. "And listen, this house? It's always your home, even if you don't live here anymore." She blinked, touched. "Even if I show up unannounced with dying basil and a need to vent?" I laughed. "Especially then." She hugged me again, tight, long real. Then she was gone. As I stood in the quiet of the house, the scent of lemon still lingering, I realized something. The door might have closed that night I told her to leave, but it never locked. Not really. And now? Now it swings open when it needs to. Because love at its best makes room. It sets boundaries. But it also builds bridges back. And maybe that's what parenting looks like in this chapter of life. Not control, not constant supervision, but presence, trust, love with space around it. The kind of love that says, "You're grown now, but the door's still open." Always.